One of the things that is interesting byproduct of QI is whenever we find something really interesting or really quite interesting, we just have to share it with people. And I'd like to do that with you now because our newest and youngest researcher at QI told me this extraordinary story only yesterday. She has a friend who's a vet who works at the PDSA in Belfast. And their two biggest problems there are that there are little old ladies who worry too much about their pets but don't have very much money. And there's another kind of person, rude people who keep pit bull terriers and the like, who don't see why they should pay for anything at all. So one day the switchboard got a typical call from someone who's concerned that their Rottweiler puppy wasn't growing properly. So with a slightly heavy heart, the operator told the owner to bring it in so they could have a look at it. After a brief examination of the animal, the vet said, "I don't know how to break this to you, but your Rottweiler puppy is in fact a guinea pig." I'm afraid it's completely irrelevant to the subject in hand, but anyway. Until this time last year, I'd never actually heard of the Ashden Awards, which is, I'm sure you'll agree, an absolute disgrace, because they're brilliant, aren't they? I mean, they're just fantastic. I feel so strongly that the Ashden Awards deserve a much higher public profile that I've proposed to Sarah that she change the name to something more likely to catch the eye of the press. My suggestion is the Ryan Giggs Awards. I think he's the perfect figurehead. Firstly, because whatever else you say about the man, you can't fault him on sustainable energy. He has plenty of that, doesn't he? But more importantly, because it will enable Sarah to take out a super injunction, preventing anyone ever mentioning the awards at all, which will ensure beyond doubt that they'll be world famous in about 15 minutes. And they should be world famous, I think, because unless ideas like these get heard, by the 22nd century, there isn't going to be anyone here to hear about them. All these tsunamis and twisters we're seeing, these volcanoes and floods and earthquakes, they're not a kind of giant snooze alarm suggesting that it's nearly time to get up and do something about it. They're a fire alarm, and it's not a test. Now, I'm not any sort of an expert on sustainable energy. In fact, until last year, I didn't know anything about it at all, and I had, like I think many other people, a slight suspicion it was a little bit boring. So, as we do at QI, I did a little research, and I found out, as we so often do, that I was completely and utterly mistaken. For example, I didn't know that 150 years ago, over 90% of the world's energy needs were supplied by just one form of sustainable energy, wood. I didn't know that more people die from fires caused by these faulty kerosene lamps that Sarah mentioned earlier than are killed by malaria. I didn't know that the Romans used geothermal energy to heat their houses. And nor did it occur to me that, as Michael McClary said, irrigation of the land with seawater desalinated by fusion power is also ancient. It's called rain. Now, although it can be difficult to extract or harness energy for human use, which is what all these awards are about, energy as such is not in short supply. The universe is jammed with the stuff. Every one of the uncountable billions of stars in the sky is a nuclear power plant. But even more extraordinary than that, the amount of energy per gram per second pumping through an ordinary sunflower is greater than that in the sun itself. Think that's boring? I didn't think so. I look forward, in fact, to the day when somebody will invent a buttonhole that powers your mobile phone. It's quite an interesting idea, isn't it? A little sunflower in there. The energy that binds the universe together comes in several forms, one of which is that extraordinary stuff, electromagnetism, of one small part of which the great scientist and poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, "The secret of magnetism, now explain that to me. There is no greater secret except for love and hate." All electromagnetic energy, from radio waves to X-rays, is the same stuff, but it's transmitted at different frequencies, and all of it's carried by photons. That's something I didn't know last week. There are other forms of energy that hold the universe together, such as gravity and two forms of magic glue that keep atoms from falling apart or collapsing in on one another. And the search for what connects these four forms of energy is called the theory of everything. It's a grand title and a grand quest, but it's not, in fact, a theory of everything. It's a unified theory of physics, what connects the laws of the very large in the theory of relativity to the laws of the very small described by quantum mechanics. A real theory of everything would tell us what it is that connects electromagnetism to love and hate. The strange, invisible grid, if it exists, that powers the wind and the waves, volcanoes and supernovae, but is also responsible for what happened in this cutting from The Guardian. The marriage suffered a setback in 1965 when the husband was killed by the wife. I think we know those little setbacks, don't we, ladies and gentlemen? I really wonder what was going on there. Anyway, QI started, actually, oddly, which I didn't know, about the same time as the Ashden Awards, about 11 years ago. And in that time, we have written and asked thousands and thousands of questions of ourselves and in the program. And I've come to the conclusion that only two of these questions actually matter. And they are, why are we here? And what should we do about it while we are? Big questions, I think you'll agree. I don't have the answers, but I do have partial answers. One of them is courtesy of the great Austrian philosopher and propeller designer, Ludwig Wittgenstein, who said, "I don't know why we are here, but I'm pretty sure it's not in order to enjoy ourselves." And the second part of the partial answer comes from one of my favorite poets, great English poet W.H. Auden, who said, "We are here on earth to do good to others. What the others are here for, I've no idea." Well, in the meantime, anyway, seriously, we need to take some action and we need to tell the truth, the Ashden Awards, loudly and interestingly, but with good humor. Because, as Oscar Wilde said, if you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh, otherwise they'll kill you. So in the meantime, let's meet this year's international nominees, all of whom are quite extraordinary. And to the winners, many, many congratulations for your astonishing triumph over adversity and insuperable odds, and for your well-deserved Ashden Awards. And for anyone who's here who didn't win an award but has come to the ceremony anyway, I would say this from a green hero of mine, Henry Mitchell, wonderful gardener, author of The Essential Earthman, who put it like this: "All anybody needs to know about prizes is that Mozart never won one." Thank you very much.